Outdoors with Tom Gruenwald is brought to you in part by HT Premium Ice Tackle and by Polar Fire, advanced cold weather clothing systems, and these other fine sponsors.
Mobridge, your all-season fishing destination.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Tom Gruenwald Outdoors. I'm Tom Gruenwald, and we are on our way right now for a major ice fishing trip. Back in Wisconsin, it's been a pretty mild year. It's actually mid-January right now, and we have very little ice. 3 to 5 inches on a lot of the smaller, shallower, more protected lakes. Bigger, deeper lakes are still pretty much wide open except for the smaller boat channels, bays, and things like that. While we're out looking for some perch, we're on our way right now. We're heading out to Webster, South Dakota, to the Glacial Hills region there. It's a beautiful, beautiful area, very fertile water, lots of perch, and I'm really excited. This couldn't be a better opportunity to really go out and catch numbers of perch. There's lots of 5, 6, 7, 8-inch perch, perfect eating size perch in these waters, and there's opportunities for 10, 11, and 12-inch or even bigger perch. The potential's there. Nice to meet you, Tom Gruenwald.
All right, pleased to meet you.
Thanks for all your help and hospitality here. Coming to Webster, Sportsman's Cove's right here on Highway 12, easy to stop by and get information. You know, there's so many different opportunities here to fish. Could you tell me just a little bit about some of these lakes? You grew up here, correct?
You know, this is kind of a phenomenon here. It started in the 90s, way above normal precip for many years, and we formed a lot of new lakes. You know, a lot of these are older sloughs that were cattails, certainly nothing fishable. And here in the 90s, we created a flood situation, and it's a closed basin, so it basically has to evaporate, doesn't creek out. So now we have fisheries that didn't exist in the 80s or early 90s that are now in that 10 to 20 to 30 foot range, and a lot of them look like they're going to be here our whole lifetime now.
So a guy could come out here one year, come back a year or two later, and literally fish a brand new lake that has basically been untouched.
Yeah, we have new lakes here that have never been fished before. You know, each year we get something new, and it seems hard to believe. People act like you know it's going to be gone, but a lot of this is going to be here quite a while. As long as we keep our normal patterns of moisture here, we're going to see a lot of this depth remain for quite a while, and maybe for our whole lifetime.
All right, well, Doug, I really appreciate your time. Looking forward to fishing out here in South Dakota. Well, we finally made it. We're out here on the South Dakota Slough. Beautiful morning. If you look here behind me, I could give you a little idea what this really looks like. Right back here, you can see this farm. And essentially what's happened is this high water condition has brought the water up and has flooded this entire farm. The buildings themselves are on a little bit of a higher ridge. So the farm buildings, the house, even a pickup truck, abandoned, left out there, stranded, basically in the middle of this lake. Another feature common out here in the Dakotas, here it looks like a boat launch. You're up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, New York, what have you, you'd just think this is your lake access point. In fact, if you look closely at the opposite side of the lake, directly opposite where this road comes down, you can actually see the roadside vegetation and kind of a little slot there with some snow on it. That is actually where the road continued. I'm standing effectively in the middle of a road that would have went right past this farm 5, 10 years ago. Now, the road's been flooded, the farm's been flooded and abandoned, and here we are. You know, I look at the road at the bottom here, it's probably under 10 or 15 feet of water right now. A place I would have drove 10 years ago is now fish structures. Here we are, you can see the slough out here along behind me. Looks like a pond or a small lake. This just kind of continues and winds around in amongst these hills, and who knows, if I come back 5 years from now, where I'm standing right now, it's possible this could be a shallow water area. That's just how high this water may come up. So effectively, we're gonna be out fishing perch today on a flat that was somebody's pasture or cropland just a decade ago. So we're gonna try to get out there and get started. The Dakota winds are supposed to really pick up and start blowing today. That's normal. So I'm gonna try to get out there, catch a few fish before the winds come up if possible. See how it goes. Come back, join us as we try to catch some South Dakota perch right after this. Well, we made it out. Here we are in South Dakota, and we're fishing the perch. Boy, I tell you, the weather changed. Last night, the Dakota winds blew up. Supposed to get winds today anywhere from 20 up to 40 miles an hour. And we got a little bit of snow blowing with it, so typical Dakota day out here fishing perch. What I'm going to do is we're fishing in about 15 feet of water. I'm going to set up with some of the new HT tungsten marmuska diamond jigs. I'm just going to tip those with wax worms. And this is a little different system. Some of these perch out here can get up to 13, 14, 15, or even 16 inches long. So I went to a little bigger system. A lot of times, fishing panfish, I'm using the micro rods. I went with a 28-inch long rod. It gives me a little bit more leverage with the bigger fish. A little bigger guides, which in this cold weather, of course, help to prevent ice up. And I'm going with a 2-pound test line here instead of a lot of times when I'm doing the bluegill thing with the micro systems, I might be using a 1-pound or a half-pound test line. Here I'm using a 2-pound. Sticking with that HT AccuCast reel. Of course, that keeps that alignment here, line coming off the spool up to my guides. Nice smooth performance. If I do catch a bigger fish, make sure I got the nice drag set so that if I do get into one of those bigger perch, I don't have to worry about having any issues with line breakage. Cork handle for extra sensitivity. Again, I'm marking a few fish down here. Haven't seen any real big ones yet. Obviously, if a bigger fish comes in, you'll see a nice big red mark. These fish are smaller, and I can tell by the size of this, it's a little guy. But that's what you got to do. You got to start out on these lakes, so these fish are kind of roaming on the flats out here. And I come out, I drilled half a dozen holes or so. I'm just going to bounce from one hole to the next, and I'll kind of keep searching here until I can intercept some of those bigger fish. Once in a while, I'll see a mark come through that's a darker green and a little bit wider mark, which would be indicative of a little bigger fish. But none of those nice big red marks, like when you get those 12, 13, 14, 15-inch perch coming in, you'll see a real distinct wide mark. They're just going to show up a lot better on the sonar. Well, I think what I'm going to do right now, again, I picked up half a dozen fish in here, but they've all been small, and most of them are right down near the bottom. I'm just going to keep moving. I've got this set of holes. I'm going to go a little bit deeper, just kind of see if I can move out and maybe find some more fish out there, and hopefully some that are a little bit bigger. Give it a shot and see what happens. That's a little better. Thing got wrapped up around my transducer cord, and fortunately, I was lucky. I didn't lose them. Usually you get one of these bigger ones and they wrap up like that, line goes slack and you miss the fish. This is more like what we've been looking for. Now I came and I moved out quite a bit deeper here from where we started, and that's a pretty nice perch right there. If we could start getting into something like that, those are things we can take home and clean up. Perfect eating size yellow perch. And I know they grow bigger out here, so I'm going to keep fishing no matter how hard that wind blows. All right, well, what I'm going to try now, we've moved a little bit here. I've tried some deeper holes and some shallower holes, and this whole area here has got a really large school of perch. Most of them tend to be pretty small. And I've got one fish that's about 8 inches, a couple of 5s and 6s, but most of them have been running about like this little guy here. Of course, I'm catching them all on this marmuska with the worms, so kind of a bug bite here. And I can't really get many of these fish to come up off the bottom. I'm just hitting them low. So I think the next thing Dennis and I are going to try is just go and get some smaller spoons. Tip those with a small minnow or a minnow head. Try working a little bigger presentation and see maybe if that might help us to find a few bigger perch. And that's really the key to this whole thing. When you're out here and you're fishing perch, first of all is to find them. And then once you start to find some fish, then start working, of course, for the biggest ones that you might be able to get on the line. These smaller fish are they're fun to catch, and I can certainly drum up enough here if I just wanted to go for some eaters, but I want to have a little fun, see if we can find some of those great big Dakota jumbos. So I'm going to go grab a spoon, set that up, keep drilling a few holes, and see if that might help us catch some bigger fish.
What I'm doing here is something a little bit unique. We're trying to attract some bigger fish. So I'm going to a very small minnow. I'm going to hook him through the head, but I'm going to hook it directly through the eyes on this hook. And I'm going to pinch it off very shortly. And that does a couple things. One, with the shortness of the bait, they will come up near the hook, you know, when they're biting lightly and actually get stuck. But as you can see, it lets that minnow head flop around a lot, and that adds a lot of attraction. Just a tiny little jiggle will get that thing flopping around. And the system I'm using is actually on a dropper chain, on a small spoon for a delivery device. I don't think the spoon is so much the attraction as is what's hanging below it. And a lot of times when these fish get finicky, they may not want to come up and grab this whole spoon because it's a pretty good sized mouthful. But that dropper chain with that minnow head flopping around can really be the trick at times. You know, we're going to lower her down, try to get through some of the smaller ones, and suck up a big one or two here.
Trying to get some of these bigger fish to come up a little bit for it. Oh, here's one. Here's a red mark. Oh, there we go. And it took a little bit of drag on that one, so it's a little bigger than some of the small ones we're getting. Yeah, there we go. Again, not huge, just a nice, decent sized yellow perch. Nice fillet we'll get off of that. Beautiful fish. Just got to keep working through them. They're certainly down there. You know, if a guy comes out here to South Dakota and you can get on one of these lakes, move around a little bit, keep trying different things. Yeah, and I'm kind of hooked on using the worms here. I think the bug bite has been pretty good, and I know I've talked with Dennis, some other people back at the bait shop, and they recommended maybe trying some minnows, possibly minnow heads on some little spoons or something like that. I'll tell you, I've been hitting a lot of fish with this, and I haven't seen any real pattern to using the minnows over the waxworms. I think these are a little bit easier to work with, especially when it's this cold. I don't have to get my hands so wet. I'm seeing fish down there, and these bigger perch are coming up and hitting on these on the waxworms. I just got to work them. Here I got a couple more fish down there again. Another thing that I'm finding really interesting is that I'm seeing a lot of clutter, or what looks like you'd think are, there's another one, suspended fish almost, yellow lines 10, 15 feet up from the bottom. But I think what I'm marking possibly is a thick school right now of plankton, or possibly even the freshwater shrimp that are so common out here in the Dakotas. And that is probably what's drawing this big school of fish to this area, is they're feeding on that plankton or those freshwater shrimp. And it's interesting, I was talking to a friend of mine that's from North Dakota, and he fishes perch quite frequently up there, and he was talking to me about those freshwater shrimp. He said, you know, Tom, he said, sometimes those schools of freshwater shrimp get so thick out there, not only do you mark them on the sonar, he said, sometimes you drop the auger down and drill a hole, and when you bring up the ice chips, you'll see freshwater shrimp kicking and jumping around, he says, in the ice chips from the holes that you catch. Another one. And he said, right as you cut those holes, you'll see those freshwater shrimp kicking around. That's always a great sign that you're in a good perch spot, because they just love to feed on those. And it's a great high protein forage base too. It really helps grow these fish fast. And I'd love to sit down and talk to some of the biologists out here a little bit about some of these sloughs, because what I'm understanding is that in many cases, the growth rates of these fish are phenomenal. You know, they can be growing, swing and a miss. You can be out there, and some of these places are telling me are growing perch at a rate of 3, 4, even 5 inches a year. And that's pretty substantial. So you take a a slough like this, it's a relatively new body of water, and we're catching these fish here that are maybe only a year or two old. And you get some of these plankton and larvae and stuff at the bottom, which I'm sure are plentiful in this muck bottom. And freshwater shrimp, that kind of forage base and supporting those kind of growth rates, I mean, it's conceivable a person could come out here and another swing and a miss. Stop talking and start fishing. But it's conceivable a guy could come out here and be catching 10, 12, 14-inch perch out of these same waters just a winter or two from now. And there's so many of these developing, and so many of them haven't even been fished before. There's just a lot of water to explore out here. So if you're really a hardcore ice fisherman and you really enjoy the opportunity going out and searching and looking for new waters, you really don't have to go and travel very far. You come right out here into this area, South Dakota, and boy, there's just an awful lot of places to experiment, a lot of places to explore, try new things. And I'll tell you what, you can catch some really nice fish, and in many cases you can come out here and you won't have a lot of other anglers on the ice. It's real easy to move, try different things. These fish now are starting to tap and bite a little bit lighter, and that's why I'm missing them. So again, it's probably time to think about picking up and moving to a different hole. But it's hard to leave when I'm seeing all these red marks down there right now. All right, just a couple minutes to work them. Another perch. Man, these are just fun. I love catching perch, and I think the best part is at the end of the day getting these things filleted out and having a perch fry. You know what I'm gonna do right now? I'm gonna just run over, let this guy go. Just go and check on Dennis and see how he's doing. Haven't had a chance to talk to him for a little while, and I know he's been experimenting with some different things. So I can go over and see how he's doing. Well, what's it been like for you?
Yeah, some of these smaller fish yet, but we can sort through these and get to some of the bigger models. You know, that guy's probably 7 inches long, but there's a lot of 10, 11, up to 12, 13-inch fish in here with even a shot at a 15, 16 occasionally. Just got to keep our bait in the water and see if we can't make one of those happen.
Keep working them. The weather's making things a little tough. I have seen some bigger fish and marked them, and I haven't had a lot of luck getting all of them to hit, but I'm doing okay. Definitely got a lot of nice eater size. Now, you've been kind of switching things up. I've been using that Marmuska tungsten with the wax worms and it being pretty consistent. And it's interesting that you went to the spring bobber because I was considering the same thing. They're biting so light that you can really register the hits better using that spring, can't you?
Exactly, and in the conditions we're facing here, it looks beautiful out to just look at the scenery, but we just came through some very unseasonably warm weather for literally months at a time here into a massive cold front, and now we've got one of the typical bluebird high pressure days. So these fish are very funny. We started out, they were somewhat aggressive, and now they're just getting tough. So that's why I went down to this spring bobber system with the tungsten jig, which I can fish a smaller jig and still get down and have good feel. We're fishing outside, obviously. You know, gosh, it's 0 degrees, and I can drop that thing down. I'm not having any problem with my line kinking. Obviously, it's hanging straight, so I can detect a bite. Toss that in with the advantages of the spring bobber, and we'll try to even the odds on these finicky guys.
Now, these spring bobbers, you know, it's interesting. There's a lot of different ways to rig these, Dennis. I mean, you can see people putting them on the tip of the rod. You know, they put the clips down over the top. Sometimes I've done it along the side of the rod and let the spring come up to it, and then I can use the full, you know, rod tip and rod blank itself to get a good hook set. And you kind of got that rigged a little differently. You ran it through the tip and clipped it up underneath the tip. That's interesting.
Right, and this is giving it just a little bit more backbone here.
Yes.
Because this is a very, very light spring bobber, and combined with that tungsten jig, as you can see, it's hanging just about right.
Yeah, I know those tungsten jigs are heavy, and a lot of people have said they're having a difficult time using spring bobbers with them because they weigh things down. But the way you've got it rigged there and bending it up a little bit, that's clever. That's a good way of doing it.
Exactly, and you touched on a point there too, is all you've got to do is do that. You can put a slight kink in it where it attaches there,
Yes.
and give it a little more upward angle there, and then obviously the jig pulls down and compensates for that and ends up just right.
It's perfect. Well, boy, you put us right on a big batch of perch. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm going to go back over there and see if I can get a couple more.
Okay, find more than 15 inches.
Yeah, I'm going to try. Good luck, Dennis. Oh yeah, this is a nice perch. There he is. Like I always say, nothing beats ice fishing. Nothing. Take a little drag, yep. This is a nicer fish again. Yep, got another one to come up on it. There we go. Hey, that's what it's all about right here. These are beautiful, beautiful sized fish. You know, if you can come on, if you like ice fishing for perch, you really want to be thinking about coming out here to South Dakota. These sloughs here in this Glacial Hills region are really, really productive. We caught numbers of 5, 6, 7, 8-inch fish. Got some nice 9s, a couple of 10s mixed in there, and that's during some tough cold front conditions. This has not been easy out here in terms of the weather, but we're still doing very well. If you're interested in perch, think about Webster, South Dakota. Be sure to join me again next time on Tom Gruenwald Outdoors.